Hey guys, Ronan Will. Today we're going to be painting the Kappa from Super Dungeon Explorer. So right here we're just looking real quick at the model. I'm sorry, this isn't from Super Dungeon Explorer. This is from the Ninja All-Stars card game. Also produced by Soda Pop Miniatures, which is now Ninja Division. Uh, they made Super Dungeon Explorer and a couple of other games that we've painted on this channel. So we're going to go in here with some Army Green from Army Painter, and just going to block in his skin tone basically. So he'll sorry, I lost my train of thought. So he'll have a dark green skin. For anybody who's like looked at Japanese history, you would know that Kappas usually have like a divot in their head. This guy has just a massive bulge, I guess. Like he looks like he had gotten hit in the head with a watermelon. But yeah, so right now that's all we're going to be doing. We're going to start with the green, and yeah, this guy actually was kind of a pain trying to get underneath his head right there. He's very enclosed, and because he came attached to the base already, it really is, instead of taking him off the base, which would have been smarter, I decided I was just going to try and paint around him. Alright, so now we're switching over to some yellow. I think I do a couple more touch-ups on the green before I end up moving back over to the yellow. As you can see, our lighting is still kind of rough. I changed up the background, so it's going to be primarily white I'm working on. And with the yellow, I decided I'm just going to go do his underbelly, kind of like a turtle, and then I'm going to do his beak there, although I do end up changing that once we start doing the highlights and after the dark tone. Or do I do dark tone? I do dark tone on this one. So right here, it's just me trying to touch up a few spots, make sure that the mouth actually was visible, because sometimes if you put too thick of a paint coat on, it ends up like the mouth disappears. So as you can see, I'm painting the shell next with some oak brown. I was just showing that there's a lot of detailing on that shell. So there's a lot of small little intricate grooves that we're going to be hopefully able to see at the end of this. apologize if you guys hear that that clicking in the background. It's my graphics card is kind of dying on me, so we're trying to get it fixed. But of course, Dell is being a pain in the butt. And I have a new graphics card that we bought from them. It's just, it didn't work. It wasn't functioning right, and we've been fighting with Dell for almost 3 or 4 months now, trying to get this replaced, and they've been dragging their heels. That's another story for another video though. So next I'm combining the green that I use for the skin and some black to give them some darker hair colors. I didn't like the idea of just going like black or just going green or something. A lot of the Kappas that people painted actually went with gray. I kind of liked the idea of it being a, you know, still somewhat younger, I guess would be the right term. So it wouldn't have like gray hair. So I figured a greenish black would be a good contrast to him. So as I'm sitting here for like 20 minutes mixing paints. There we go. And unfortunately, mixing black and green, you really do have to mix a lot of green into the black, because otherwise the black will just overpower it. But I think I got a good job, a good shading. It's darker than the skin tone, and yet it's still got a nice green to it. Again, I apologize for the lighting. I'm going to have to figure something out to make the lighting better. But for now, this is what you're dealing with. This is just trying to touch the inside. Again, it's very hard to get into because of his positioning. But yeah. So I believe from there, let's see, we're just doing a few more touch-ups that on areas that I had missed. Trying to get all that green where it's supposed to be. As you can see, his base was kind of in the way. So really the last thing before we do a dark tone on him would be doing the base itself. So, oh right, we did, this wasn't really necessary to do right now, but I ended up blocking in his eyes. So we're just going to put little white spots where his eyes will be. Again, this honestly was not necessary to do now, and I kind of, in retrospect, that might have been the only thing I change on what I'm doing. As you can see, that's the desert yellow. So yeah, I might actually, you'll see I actually give him regular like eyes. I kind of like how he looks with just the white, but too late now, he's already got the colored eyes. So this is the hardest part, because I don't want to get any of the paint on the model, obviously, and I'm trying to now paint the areas that are supposed to be sand colored, and some of the paint is still a little wet, but I switched to a smaller brush here just to try and clean up those areas that are a little wet that I don't want to get the paint on his flippers or arms or whatever you want to call them. And then I'm going to switch in just a moment to some ash gray to paint the stones that he's standing on. And that will lead us straight into the dark tone. Or skipping ahead a little bit here. There we go. Oh, I had to replace the battery. It's not really skipping ahead. I'm sorry, guys. So this is like the hardest section, and it's going to be hard to see because his arm is on top of some of the gray stone. So I needed to be very gentle about placing the water, pacing. Need to be very gentle about pacing the paint. Placing the paint. Why can't I say that? You guys get to listen to me struggle through this because I've been recording way too much. Alright, so why do I have the black there? I thought that was black. That might have been the dark tone. But yeah, I think that's the dark tone now. Yeah. So I let it dry a little bit and then I switch over, get the dark tone, and I'm just going to cover the whole model with this because the skin tone really doesn't make any sense to do on his green skin. But it's the usual, just do a whole wash, trying to make sure that the dark tone ends up seeping into the crevices, and it will result in a very obvious display of whatever the indents are. Alright, so a few hours later we switch over to start to do some highlights. As you can see, the shadows got worse. I'm really going to have to figure out some way to light it better. But at the end you'll be able to see a lot better view of it. I started with a smaller brush already, so basically I'm not going to be doing massive color changes. If anything, I might be doing smaller sections. Oh right, I used the wrong color, so I had to wipe off the coloring on him, and just goes to show that even no matter how organized you can set yourself up for, you still can make a major mistake like adding the wrong color. So this, I'm just putting on a lot of the raised areas, his outer arms, his massive head, and like the end of his tail and everything. And then I'm going to start adding some lighter colors on top of it, mixing in some of that green to make him brighter. I promise, guys, I will get better at figuring out where this guy goes in the camera. As you can see, I even have a piece of the tripod in view, It's just me trying to get back into filming while painting. Alright, so we're just gonna finish up here and then we're gonna switch to a slightly brighter green mixture. Alright, so as you can see, we're doing an even lighter tone here. We want to make him look very slimy, so he's going to get like these lighter and lighter tones. I could have probably done another layer or two, adding some white to it, but I didn't really have the time to sit and make him super glossy. But what I'm going to do next is the top of that skull. So to show that it's supposed to be like a divot or something, I'm going to kind of give him a very light coloring on the top there. There'll be a few sections that I'm going to give him just some really light greens. Basically, it's just showing that there's a lot of light reflecting off him. Again, I don't want him to be like shiny where it's all white, but he definitely is going to have some lighter greens because the sun would be shining down on him, which is kind of funny because this game, if you're using this for the um, Ninja All Stars series, it's actually supposed to be a event that's happening at night, so technically it would be the moonlight, which wouldn't reflect as heavily. But I don't know. I kind of still ended up going with like a daylight toning for him. So next we're going to move on to his belly and his beak. I was looking at his some of the things that other people did, and they gave him like more of a greenish beak. So as you'll see, I'm gonna start mixing some paints and giving him some green to the beak instead of just the yellow. Oh, I did his hair first, that's right. So ignore everything I just said about that. So we're just doing some highlights again on here. I'm gonna start with the base tone, then add a few more colors to it. Alright, and so here we're going to start giving him his colored beak. As I said, I started to add some green to him for that beak. It's still very, very yellow. If I remember, the first coat I did was still mostly yellow. So as you can see, it's got a little bit of a green tone to it, a green tint, if you will, but it's mostly yellow. And then while the paint was wet, I ended up changing up, so he's going to get a lot more green to that beak. If I can manage to mix the colors properly. that was just a quick adjustment, which I then started adding more green to. So he's got that yellowy, he's got that yellowy beak still that I wanted, but it's a lot more reserved. Alternatively, I could have also done a green wash on his beak, and that would have given me a very similar effect. So next, I'm just trying to bring out some of the definition on the chest, which is very hard to do because I can barely even see it in reality, and you guys can't really see anything that I'm painting once it gets past like the upper pecs. I throw my rag over there, and now I'm going to switch to a technique I usually try to avoid because it's a little messy, and that is going to be dry brushing the shell. So normally with large sections like this, I would do, I would sit there and I'd slowly go and work my way around all the grooves. But I, again, didn't have the time to sit and mess with this. So I started dry brushing it, which basically what you do, you put paint on your brush, you take your rag or paper towel, whatever you're using to clean off your brush, and basically you take as much of the paint off as possible, and the remnant that's sitting on the paintbrush will then, once you go back to your model, start painting, obviously start painting the model. So that's what I'm doing there. I really didn't do too much to the shell. I kind of liked the way the shell turned out. I knocked over the gray there, or threw the gray over there, which will be used for obviously touching up the base. And one last, oh, I did add a little gray to the shell just to give it some highlighting effects on the very top. And then we switch over from that. We should be doing the base next. Added a little bit of white to the upper edges, dry brushing it again. This way it gave it a little bit more of a wet, swampy look, I guess, which I end up adding some effect paint to the base anyway, so a lot of my work that I put onto the base kind of gets covered up. But it's, I kind of like how the base turned out with the effect paint. So here I'm touching up the eyes, doing a little white on the eyes. And again, I kind of, looking at this in the video, I kind of like just having the white eyes. But I end up giving him like the super dungeon eyes that I usually make, which I think I mixed some black and green, so the same as his hair. And I did that for the iris, and then I just gave him a few lighting effects. Oh, I'm now touching up the base. I realize I don't do this in any particular order, guys. I kind of jump around the way my brain works, is I'll jump to this, then I'll jump back to something else, then I'll move on to another section. It's like chaos, I swear.
Take one moment, look at the overhead windows on Discovery.
Hey Ronnie, I'm ready
So I went with my gray. So just touching up the stones there. I'm trying not to like cover the entire stone with just the gray because that would defeat the purpose of doing the dark tone. So I just kind of did a couple of the edges, basically trying to show that he's got some type of shadowing, which kind of seems pointless to do now. Oh, see, now I go with the eyes. And at first I just put little beady eyes in. I kind of wanted to make him look a little bit more dynamic than just little beady eyes. So I end up putting white dots on him, which you really can't see that well here. But I had to redo the eyes in post anyway because the paint started to run, especially when I was varnishing, as you'll see. So this is just some high gloss varnish. And this is where I realized that not everything was dry on him. So that's why I had to do a lot of post adjustments, and he'll look very different from where this video is going to cut. I have a really bad habit of editing stuff after, like fixing him off screen. I should show you guys. As you can see, I'm trying to clean up the eye a little bit, which ended up making it worse. So I had to pull off the paint and everything. But yeah, so that's the end of the prep for it. And we're going to take a look at the final product and give you finishing views on it. Alright, and here we go, guys. Here's the final spin around of the model. The slime effect I used was called Disgusting Slime from Painter. And that's about it. So, like, comment, and subscribe down below. We'll catch you